Okay, so I got that recorder rolling and we are ready to get rocking here. So, once again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Now, I'm not going to take up too much of your time here today. However, I do have a couple of very specific things that I would like to show you today. So, let's go ahead and head on over to a couple of accounts here. So, just give me a moment. Just going to open up some fresh tabs. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click to create an ad, because the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is yet another angle that you can take when running your ads. Now, lately, we've been talking quite a bit about the engagement styles of ads, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and open that. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to open up a page. So again, when you're doing an engagement, remember there's two steps to that process. One, yes, you're going to run an ad, but two, which technically I guess let me just reorganize those. One is to make the post first. Two is where you go and boost that post by going in and setting up an engagement style of ad. All right. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So I'm just going to grab this sample page here. So again, just bear with me here, folks. I'm almost done. All right, here we are. So let me show you this new style of ad. Now, again, we've talked quite a bit about the importance of when you're running an ad and when you're marketing to potential home buyers that what we really need to do is get inside their heads, right? We talked about the importance of understanding their fears, their concerns, and then tapping into those by essentially the best way I can describe it is finishing the conversation in their head. It's one of the greatest phrases I've ever heard in the world of writing ad copy. And for the life of me, I don't recall where I first heard this. It was at least, I don't know, 12 to 15 years ago. But I did hear a professional copywriter describing the process of when somebody asked them, well, how is it that you're able to write a single page of ad copy and then charge $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for just one page? And then on top of that, charge 20% of whatever profits come from that marketing piece. So these are 7 and 8 figure copywriters. And the copywriter said, well, basically, my secret is simple. I first try to get inside the heads of my prospects by understanding what their biggest fears are and their biggest concerns, and figure out what it is they're saying to themselves in their mind when they're thinking about these fears and concerns, and then I try to finish that conversation for them. And it's such a brilliant way of looking at it. And that's just stuck with me my whole life. And it's exactly what we're going to do here today. So what I want you to do is just imagine what these folks um, are thinking, what's going on in their minds when they're thinking about buying a house, and what are their fears, what are their concerns. And we talked about this the very first time we connected, right, during session number 1, where we were talking about the different angles and whatnot of writing an ad. So what I want you to do is get back into that mindset, and if you took your notes, which was part of the original activities, then let's circle back to that and let's continue that process, because that's the exact type of ad that I'm going to run here today. So, all right. So give me just one moment here. I'm just going to open up a couple more things, and then we're going to be ready to rock and roll with this ad. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of different angles here. Let me see if I can find that. My apologies. I'm having trouble finding a particular document that I had open, and I'd opened it before the call. And for the life of me, I don't know where it went. So I'd actually opened it specifically to be prepared, and the darn thing. Here we go. That's why I couldn't find it. So it was just kind of hidden behind another window. That's why I couldn't find it. Okay. Here we are. Okay. Okay, so link goes here. So that's it for this one. Okay, so if we have any questions on that here. Now, again, this is just some basic copy here. Obviously, if I were going to post this, I would just go through it a couple times and find ways to punch it up and make it even more powerful. But once you get to the link portion here at the end that says link here, now it's entirely up to you as to what you want to link to, because there's a couple different ways to go about doing this. And let me go ahead and open up a document so we can discuss that. Okay, so this is what we call our call to action, right? So the call to action is obviously a exceedingly important part of your advertisement. And the call to action is essentially action do we want them to take? What do we want them to do? I mean, really, at this stage, what would you like them to do? And you have a lot of different options available to you. Now, when it says link here, in other words, just kind of telling you where to put a link at, pretty straightforward there. But when we say that, there's a couple options. So we could link to, probably one of the simplest things that you could do is link to a blog post on your website. Why would you want to link to a blog post, guys? What would be the advantages of doing this? That's right. That's right. Yeah, because we get them off of Facebook, right? So let's take a look at, so we remove them from distractions, because the longer they're on Facebook, the more likely they are to be distracted, right? I mean, heck, even on the homepage of Facebook, it's constantly refreshing and you're seeing new ads show up, right? So there's lots of different ways that they can be distracted and go, oh wow, that looks even more entertaining. So they're going to click on something else. So we just want to get them away from those distractions. So that's number one. Number two is if we get them to click on a blog post, we can also drop our tracking cookie from Facebook. So remember, I had you guys create your custom audiences, your tracking cookies from Facebook. What was the point of that? What was the point of that tracking cookie? Well, the point of that tracking cookie is we can retarget these individuals now. So let's just pretend, let's just play some make believe here, and let's pretend that the ad didn't get you a single lead, a single prospect. Okay, let's say you had 100 people click through and go to your blog post, and you didn't get a single lead out of that. It's still not a waste if you dropped cookies on all those 100 people, because what that means is with the tracking cookie, you can rerun ads as a custom audience to all of those people and only those people. So it's only going to cost you a teeny tiny infinitesimal amount of money to retarget these individuals, but you're retargeting and running ads to people that you already know were interested in your topic. And that's what's so rocking about this particular approach, right? Because we dropped those tracking cookies. So we can link them to a blog post, remove them from the distractions, and drop our tracking cookie. But also, while on your website, you have opportunities. While they're on your website, don't you have other things on your website, other things that can grab their interest and that they can click on or read, or other lead capture elements? What I like to do is at the end of all of my articles, if I'm going to link somebody to a blog post, that's if. I don't always do this. This is just one option. But if I'm going to link somebody to a blog post straight from my ad on Facebook, what I'm going to do is at the end of my article, I'm going to treat it like an advertorial, and I'm going to actually put specific lead capture elements at the bottom of my article. So I get them there to click and to engage them and to gather their interest and drop that tracking cookie, but I'm also going to make some attempts to capture a lead too. All right. So that's one potential call to action. Again, we don't have to go this route. This is just one. So what else do we got? So let me put you guys on hold. Okay, so does that make sense? All right, so if you guys, if there's any questions, now's the time to let me know. All right, so let's go into call to action number 2. And let me just kind of circle back to the ad itself here real quick. So let's, all right, so here we go. So that way it's making sense, because I want you guys to have this fresh in your mind that what tactic we're using before we boost this post. So again, we're tapping into fear right here. So if you're buying a home or considering buying a home in the St. Louis area, then you probably want to read this. See, there are 3 primary techniques that banks and mortgage companies can use that mislead you. In this mini article, I explain how to see through these smoke and mirror tactics and get straight to the truth. So I would probably smooth this out with something such as, letting them know, here's also how to find out how much you qualify for, or blah, blah, blah. Just, I would smooth this up a bit. But you can see where I'm going with this, right? Anytime we tap into fear as a mechanism, and we do it properly, we're probably going to get a mad rush of clicks, because fear sells. That's something, I mean, heck, all we got to do is look at the news for that, right? Fear freaking sells. So what am I going to send them to once they've read that and clicked to read my mini article? So mini article would refer to a blog post, but let's say maybe another call to action might be YouTube video, and it doesn't even have to be YouTube. It could just be a video in general, right? So I could just shoot a video And let's just be honest. You know, if I advertise that in the video, that then click here to watch the video, we know that people watch more video than they do read stuff. It's as simple as that. So now let me ask you guys, what are the advantages? Why would I want to send somebody to a YouTube video or just a video in general? Why would I want to send somebody there? What do I, as a loan officer who's doing some marketing for myself, what do I have to gain from that? What do I gain by sending them to a video? All right, so that's correct. So basically, let me get my little bullet points out here real quick. All right, so the first thing is, again, that's right, we remove them from distractions, just like the other. Get them off of Facebook because there's so many things there that can lure them to click, and now they've forgotten all about you. But number two is I can also drop a cookie too. Even with the video, I can drop a tracking cookie, but also they're going to watch more of that video than they would if I put the same amount of content in text format. Okay. Video tends to have higher perceived value than text does because people know it takes longer to create a video, that more work goes into it. Also, it gives you a form of instant, especially if you appear in that video presenting the content, you form instant credibility. You also build more rapport. It's instant rapport. People, when they can put a face to the name, they can hear your voice, they can see your expressions. It's been proven time and time again, guys, that video creates more rapport than if they were just reading something you had written. We're visual creatures, guys. We like to see who it is we're talking to. That's very, very important. Also, people tend to make a lot of judgment calls. So if you present yourself in a professional format, you know, you're dressed nicely, but not overdressed, you're engaging, you're friendly, that tone, they're judging you to be a quality person, a reliable person, a trustworthy person. Say, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. And it's hard to compete with that in text format just because we're in a very video centric society these days, right? So I could link them to a YouTube video. Okay. All right. What else could I do as far as a call to action? I could send them to a landing page. Oh, so one other thing I want to add to the video is that I can put another advantage is I can put a verbal call to action at the end. And that's so powerful when you can wind up your video by instructing them on what you want them to do. I mean, that's just so powerful. So I could tell them what to do next. Do I want them to give me their information? Do I want them to go to another page and fill it out? You know, do I want them to download something? What do I want them to do? Being able to just straightforward and tell them what to do is hard to compete with. Now let's talk about landing page. So if I send them to a landing page, okay, so if they go, I'm going to get an instant lead. Okay, so I'm going to get more leads probably off of the landing page than the others. Now that's not as cut and dry as it sounds. Okay, I'm going to get more leads up front. It doesn't mean necessarily in the long run that I'll get more leads, but just sending somebody to a no distraction squeeze page, landing page that just grabs their information and moves on, I'm going to get more up front. However, it doesn't, again, mean that in the long run I won't get more leads or better leads off of the other two methods. So don't necessarily read into that because there are a significant amount of variables there to consider. So, okay, so I'm going to get an instant lead though, so that's an advantage. So we have clear-cut instructions here, no distractions. That has appeal, right? That's awesome. So that's another advantage. What else? Why else would I want to send them to a landing page? Obviously for the same, we can drop cookies, everything that I mentioned above as far as the first couple of items, as far as getting them off of Facebook and dropping cookies, all of those apply to a landing page as well, because it's a website, it's a web page, so I can insert tracking code into that landing page as well. But the primary benefits are the instant lead capture and the fact that there are no distractions, and it's easy to split test. So guys, this is such an important part of your marketing, the ability to split test, because I could create two slightly different variations of it, and for a couple days run traffic to one and a couple days run traffic to another, and figure out which one's going to get me better results. See, it's easy to do at the landing page. I mean, most landing page creation softwares allow you to just clone a page at the click of a button, and then you just go in and make teeny tiny changes to the second one, and boom, you're good to go. So it's quick and easy. All right. Okay. So what else can I do? What are some other calls to action? We talked about video. We talked about a blog post. We talked about a landing page. I could do an ebook. So I could take my advice and put it in either an article or in a mini ebook format. And there's a lot of tools out there, including Canva, which I've mentioned to you guys on many, many calls before because it's free. It does have some paid factions for it if you want to use some of their built-in imagery, but they're usually $1, $1. So I know for a fact that you can create ebook covers. That gives you some credibility. Again, it's all about the packaging, guys. So the ebook gives credibility, and if it's in PDF format, then it's easy to share. Let's just get rid of these. There we go. And an ebook, again, tends to have higher perceived value than just a regular old, blog post or article, especially if you put a nice looking cover on it that makes it look very official and whatnot. Again, that gives you a little bit of more credibility than just, some random blog post on the web, right? So these are the primary calls to actions. Now, there's a lot of other things that we can do. We can send them over to a podcast audio clip. We could send them over to an appointment scheduling software where they can schedule an appointment with you. We could send them over to a Facebook tab or Facebook page, because you can set up multiple pages and tabs for your Facebook. I mean, there's so much that I could link to from this ad. And the unfortunate part is that most loan officers will never even take the time to test each one out and really explore it, because the crazy thing is that what we often find is that most loan officers give up right before they hit their big success. Most of them have 90% of what they need to have done. And when I say most of them, I mean the guys that are taking action, not referencing all loan officers in the U.S. Just when you really focus on the guys who are running ads and reading and learning and whatnot, they throw in the towel, even though all they have to do is take care of that remaining 10%. And that usually is doing things such as what I just outlined here. Instead of making an assumption and saying, well, I'm going to pick one of these because it's the path of least resistance, and if that doesn't work, then therefore none of them work. Well, different offers can have wildly different results. When I say wildly different results, I mean one version or variation can end up with one lead over the course of a whole week, And I can run the exact same ad, but just with a slightly different call to action and get a dozen leads or 20 leads or 30 leads and end up with multiple closings. And most loan officers don't really take the time to methodically implement what they're being taught to be able to stand back and say, yes, I know what does and does not work. But it's doing these little things, these little differences of trying it out in different formats and keeping detailed notes as to which leads came from where, who turned into applications, who turned into closings, who did I get credit on, et cetera, et cetera. That's where we differentiate between the guys that get a handful of closings a year from Facebook and the guys who get several closings every single month. I'll give you an example. And the more that you engage in, the more activity you engage in, the more the odds start to tip in your favor. And I'm going to give you guys an example here of what I mean by more. Now, actually had a client who got started just in the past 30 days. And yesterday we actually had our 30-day conference. So this was a company who has a lot of loan officers. And it was our 30-day results conference to where we meet up with, I met up with the 4 owners of the office or offices and went over their results. Now for the first month, they said they wanted to go low and only spend about 20, they gave me a budget of 25 grand to spend for the month of July. And then we're going to see, wrap that up, see how well it goes. And then, if it goes well, then we'll spend, 30 grand the following month and then 35 grand the month after, and we'll just keep toggling it up, until we get to our goals. Well, here's the interesting thing. It's not the end of July yet, or it was, yesterday was what, the 26th? Okay, so yeah, so not the end of July yet, but we went ahead and met a little bit early to go over the results. So we'd only spent $17,000 of their budget. Now here's the interesting thing. Check this out, guys. So out of the $17,000 spent, and the irony being is we ran the exact ad that I gave you guys about 3 weeks ago. 283 credit pools and applications. It actually turned into 1003s and applications and credit pools. 283. At the rate they're going, they said they'll easily get well over 300 applications for 1 month. Over 300 applications. Now, the interesting thing is at the rate we're going, we're not going to spend $25,000 because I was able to drive down some of their costs. So we'll probably wrap up right around $19,000 because we only have a couple days left. So yeah, we'll wrap up around $19,000, just under 20. But to get 283 applications out of that, actual full-blown credit pulls, so when you start doing the math, guys, that's a very healthy number, under $100 per actual credit pool and full application, which is very, very, very strong ROI. Once we take a look, because I know what their average closing ratio has been for the past 12 months. I anticipate it's going to be very high on this campaign as well. Yeah, they're walking away with a pretty penny when we actually start crunching those numbers. Yeah, they're going to end up wanting to toggle this up, probably, according to him. They're probably just going to want to jump straight from the 25 to about 45 to 50. No need to go up in 5K increments because they're so happy with their results. And really the only difference between these folks and most loan officers is that they're just following up methodically. Because I'm dealing with the owners and they enforce a very strict code for following up. And that is that all the leads, if a loan officer isn't following up within that first 30 minutes, now they want them to be within the first 5 minutes, but keep in mind we've already implemented some of the automations, so the loan officer doesn't have to follow up immediately because we got the voice drops going. We got the other things that I told you guys about. But the loan officer themselves has to follow up as well within the first 30 minutes. And if they get repeated um, complaints that these aren't being followed up with quickly enough, then they just cut the loan officers off from the leads entirely, because they're just basically wasting good money, right? Why send these leads that you work so hard to implement over to people who aren't going to appreciate them? That's basically what they say. So it's just the fact that they're methodical with that follow up. And again, since I'm the one running the ads and running the entire campaign, I am methodical with my split testing. So I don't make assumptions. I make sure that I test. Will this work better or will that work better? Well, instead of guessing, why not find out for certain? Because then what happens is when you're always doing these small tests as opposed to huge tests of huge differences, when you just do small tweaks and changes, you can keep track of your entire process of increasing your conversion rate. And that's a beautiful thing. Versus if every single time I ran an ad and it didn't immediately right out of the box pull the way I wanted it to, if I just completely trashed it for an all new ad, okay, this sucks, gotta try something all new, then I would never know. When I finally stumble upon something that works, I won't know, well, which changes made me go from, hey, this didn't work, to, holy cow, this is awesome. Does that make sense? That's why it's so important that we track and engage in these small tweaks to split test and minimize doubt as to why something does or does not work. All right. Okay. So, any questions on this thus far? Just going to pause here for just a moment. While I'm paused there, just all right. So I'm just going to kind of copy that there. Just going to pop it in here so that way it'll make it easy to share with you folks in GLIP. Let's make sure that is actually working. There we go. So let me show you yet another ad variety where I can make some impact and make some noise here. All right, so check it out. Now, there's a lot of different directions I can go with this. I just put a more generic version here. So, okay, home buyers in St. Louis, I have a big question for you. What, in your opinion, is the worst part about buying a new home? Don't hold back now. Just let me know in the comments below. So I could replace this worst with confusing, frustrating. I want to go with emotionally charged verbiage here. Because the thing is what do people like to do when it comes to communication? What do they like to do more than anything else? Complain, right? That's why it's so much easier to find complaints than it is people saying positive things about most topics, right? if you're looking for negative, if you go out hunting for negative, you're going to find a whole lot more negative than if you go out hunting for positives in most instances, because people are quick to tell their negative stories, right? It's a form of gossip or just validation. They just want somebody else to hear what they're frustrated about, whatever the reason behind it. We've all witnessed it, that people do like to complain and share their stories. So they're just kind of getting that off their chest a bit. So we just come right out and we give them permission. We ask. I mean, heck, you can even make a contest out of it if you really wanted to. But this is, again, just a very powerful approach where I can just ask, or, what's been the most frustrating experience you've had buying a home in the past, or tell us your horror stories, or what's the thing that concerns you most about buying a home, or what's the aspect of buying a home that you're most worried about, or keeps you awake at night. There's many, many, many different ways that I can ask this question. It's engaging, and then we're going to go in and we're going to boost it, and hopefully you'll get a lot of comments, because what happens is the more people that comment and interact, the more Facebook shows this ad for free as well, because you get paid traffic from it, and you can also get free traffic. So if you're getting those comments or shares, or however else they're engaging in your ad here or in your question, it's just going to boost the number of people that see it. So does that make sense? Very powerful, right? Awesome. Okay, so now that we're done with that portion, give me just a moment here, folks, and if you have any questions, now is definitely the time to let me know. I'm just going to open up some fresh tabs here. Close out of the old, and I'm opening up some fresh. So now is definitely the time. If you do have a question, just go ahead and pop it in there. Okay. So what we're going to look at now, folks, is we're going to talk about your cookies and your retargeting. So give me just a second here as I get ready for the retargeting portion. Okay, here we are. So now I want to talk to you about the retargeting itself. So when we talk about retargeting, really what we're talking about here, folks, is the capability to drop the tracking cookies and then rerun ads to those individuals, right? So let's pretend that you ran one of these ads and you dropped hundreds of cookies. You're thinking to yourself, okay, now that I have all these hundreds of cookies, it's like having an all new audience. I can run ads instead of going in and targeting a bunch of random people I know nothing about. I can run ads to those several hundred people or even several thousand people that were already interested enough to click on my original ad, but for whatever reason just didn't get their info. And that's just so powerful. I just love it. Absolutely love it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a traffic ad here. I'm going to continue. And I'm just showing you the basics. We don't need to go through this whole process again, just because we've covered it so many dozens of times in past trainings and webinars and masterminds, etc. So I'm sure you guys know that when we're retargeting, what we do is we just kind of go down to use a saved audience. There we go. And we click this drop down. And boom. All right, so this one's not available. Some of the categories aren't available because we know Facebook constantly changes, and that's okay. But bottom line is I can use my saved audience of individuals that I drop tracking cookies on, and then I could just move on. Say I got 43,000 people targeted from that saved audience. Now, a saved audience can be a custom audience or it can be just an audience that you saved previously just due to your criteria. Okay. So I don't recommend confusing the two. So when I'm retargeting, essentially what I'm doing is I'm telling Facebook, okay, what I want you to do is go out and show ads again to these X amount of people that were interested enough to click on my stuff previously. Now, what I like to do is when I'm retargeting, because there's a right way to retarget and there's a wrong way to retarget. Unfortunately, what's often taught to loan officers is indeed the wrong way. The way a lot of trainers teach this, it's pretty much you're just online stalking these poor people. And that to me is just, that's never a good thing. It's not a good look, guys. Nobody uh, wants to come across as that desperate company or that desperate loan officer who's just following me around the web, and I see him 100 times a day. Because yeah, when you retarget, depending on how you structure it, your ad could be getting seen just again and again and again, and some people will talk about that like it's a good thing. And there's nothing wrong with being highly visible and showing up multiple times and in multiple places. But the way some of these people run their retargeting, people are seeing them every single time they log on for weeks and months, and that's just creepy. And it's not doing you any favors. Nobody goes, oh, okay, fine, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give you my business since you've been so professionally persistent. Oh, you. No, not going to happen. It just doesn't work that way, does it? It really doesn't. So instead, we have to lure them. We have to attract them. It has to be magnetic type of marketing. So what I like to do is if I'm going to retarget, then I'm going to go back to my sheet from earlier. So let's go ahead and open that up again. Let's get back to that sucker. And I'm just going to make got a T in there. That should be an R. Just going to switch that over to Arial. All right, there we go. Let's just get a fresh start here. Okay, so when it comes to retargeting, what I want is I want to match to my ad. So let's say my ad was 3 things banks and mortgage companies are hiding or deceiving you on, or whatever, whatever verbiage you decide to use. Okay, so let's say that is the ad where I'm dropping the cookie, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I retarget to this specific group of individuals that went to that page, or filled out my form, or whatever the case may be, or just went to my blog post or article or watched my video. Well, what we do is we create what we call angles. And there's a couple different angles that we can take, because we know we have to look at what we know about these people already. What I know is that they've pretty much confirmed. Now, it's not going to be 100% of the time, but the vast majority of the people who would click on an ad like that or an article like that or watch a video on that topic, it's because they're thinking about getting a loan. So that's one thing that I know about these people is A, they're interested in a home loan. So if you were suddenly just thrust into a room filled with hundreds of people that have identified themselves as being interested in buying a home this year, what would you say? What would you say to these people? I mean, really, think about it. Just really, really put yourself in those shoes. What would you say? What would you do? What would be your call to action? How would you stimulate their interest? How would you make them want to talk to you? Okay. So there's a couple of different things I can do. If I know that they're interested in a home loan, and specifically I talked about buying a home, then I could share properties, homes for sale. I could do that. Really? Remember, we talked about setting up a dedicated page on Facebook just for the best home deals in a particular area. Well, how would that not appeal to somebody who's looking to buy a home? If I'm thinking I'm going to be moving here very soon and I see an opportunity to look at properties and homes for sale, I mean, that's definitely going to get my attention, right? So very powerful right there. What else can I do? I could retarget with tutorial videos or articles on mortgage or RE related topics. I mean, if I already know that these people have self-identified themselves as being interested in a home loan, and I know that they want a good deal because that's the article they clicked on was something that's about how not to get taken advantage of, then most likely that's something that's top of their mind is getting a good deal, not getting ripped off. So what I would probably want to do is link them to other either videos or articles or whatever the case may be. I will link them to that in my retargeting. Anything else? And when we say mortgage, let me give you some examples. I mentioned not too long ago about the opt-out, the trigger lead credit opt-out page. That would be a beautiful one for retargeting, by the way. So I could do an article, or I could do a video walking them through. Here's how you opt out of trigger leads, blah, blah, blah. You're doing them a favor and you're doing yourself a favor, right? Because you're minimizing the competition when that person's information cannot be sold. I mean, basically what I'm doing is making sure that the bulk of loan officers are going to be completely unaware that this person's on the market because they're not going to be a trigger lead. What else we got, folks? How else might I wish to retarget these individuals? So I could send them to real estate properties and homes. I could send them to my blog where I might put videos or articles or whatever the case may be. But what else can I do? Well, I could do the find out how much you qualify for ad. See, what I would probably do is over the course of the next, 60 days, I would rotate some of these offerings and see which ones get me the best results. So that way I'm not guessing. All right, perfect. Okay, folks, so letting that sink in. Now give me just another quick moment here. Just going to take a look at a couple more tabs. And if you have questions, by all means, now would definitely be a great time to ask. Okay, just heading on over. There we go. Oh, okay. So as far as yeah, the retargeting guys, yeah, that's done right here. That when I go in to set up my audience, if I've set up a retargeting audience for myself within Facebook, it's going to have this section in it. Okay, so I just go to my saved audience. That's where it's going to be, and boom, you're now good to go. All right. Okay, folks. So yeah, we've covered quite a bit of ground here today, pretty quickly, in fact. So we covered a couple different ads. We covered retargeting. We covered what needs to go into planning that. And these are things that I would love to see you do ASAP. I'd like to see you taking these actions and then sending me the update. Let me know how that's working out for you, folks, because this is just absolutely crushing it. Just absolutely crushing it. You know, and I shared the example of 283 credit pulls and applications. Again, that person spent a lot more on their ads than most. However, some of you folks are in areas where you could get something going so very quickly, just so incredibly fast. Okay. All right, folks. So once again, I will place the replay into the members area in Glip. And if you guys do have any questions pop up as we go along, you know the drill. Just give me a jingle. And I very much look forward to seeing your results on this. And don't forget that we're going to do the pay per call coming up here soon. Pay per call is where someone clicks on an ad, and instead of going to a landing page, your phone's going to ring. I know, really, really exciting. And I'm absolutely stoked about it myself, but it's something that I'm working on, and I will be extremely, extremely hyped to share it with you. So you'll probably get a message from me stating, "Hey guys, what's it like tomorrow? What's it I do?" Oh, sorry about that. We cut out there. And yeah, I'll get that over to you guys, and looking forward to seeing what you guys can do with it. All right. So thanks again for joining me, guys. We'll see you next time.